Most people say they want wealth, but very few are prepared for what it does to them. What happens when you start making some serious money, and what happens when you lose it? Because money doesn't just amplify your lifestyle, it amplifies your identity, your psychology, and your emotional discipline. Today, John Templeton joins me to unpack authenticity, business, wealth, and the psychology behind making and losing money. If you're building something, chasing growth, or trying to elevate your life, then this episode is for you. By the end of this episode, you'll understand how to build wealth without losing clarity and how to manage yourself when the stakes get higher. Before we go deeper, if you're getting value out of these conversations and you care about building something deeper, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Subscribing helps us grow the podcast, reach more builders, and keep bringing you conversations like this every single week. Welcome to the podcast, John. How are you today?
Well, actually, today has been a day, but I'm good.
Yeah, I feel you on that one. Let's start at the very start. So what is authenticity and how, does that impact people in the workplace, in business?
There are so many frames to look at authenticity through. For most people, the most relevant frame is to do what inspires you most. That would be being authentic. So instead of letting fear stop you, instead of biting your tongue when you want to speak something that's aligned with what you believe, then authenticity is allowing yourself to be yourself. And although people grow and change and their desires change and what their beliefs change, in any given moment, you're going to have something that's true for you. And speaking into that or acting in alignment with that, that's what it means to be authentic.
I love that. Yeah. So why do so many people struggle to be authentic when it comes to business?
Comparing ourselves to others is usually the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And
Can agree with that one.
Yeah. And so when we're starting a business, our creative ideas don't necessarily come from pure divine inspiration. We look towards other people for ideas. So maybe you want to start an e-commerce brand. You're going to look at what other people are doing. And that's a double-edged sword because you can go, oh, these are great ideas. And then you can start maybe walking down a pathway, but it's not really aligned with your strengths, your skills.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we're comparing ourselves to others, there's that dimension strategically, but there's also how we feel about ourselves when those comparisons are happening. So if someone's doing far better than we are, we compare ourselves, we get down on ourselves, that's going to also destroy our business, destroy our self-belief.
Mm-hmm.
So comparison happens in those two ways, strategically and psychologically.
It's funny you touched on the comparison side of stuff. I'm really bad for comparison in the sense that I compare myself to, 30 and 40-year-old millionaires and people that have sold business and been in business for 10, 15 years. And I think, what have they done? What were the risks that they took at my age? What did they do at my age to get there? And I'm like, oh, how can I get there? But it's not a case of getting there. It's about the journey and stuff as well. And being authentic in that.
100%. And really, you only get to figure out who you are by trying different things.
Yeah.
Because you'll walk down a path, and I talk about it like sculpting a sculpture.
Mm-hmm.
You have to find out what's not you to really peel the layers back to find out what is you. And, these 30, 40-year-old millionaires, they're still trying to figure it out too. They don't have all the answers. So they might have hit milestones that you want to hit, but that definitely doesn't mean that they're still not diving deeper into their full potential. It's just a stepping stone along the way, along the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So is authenticity a strategy, or do you think it should be a standard?
Are those my only two options, or can I add something?
You can add something to it. Yeah.
I think it is a state of being. It's a state of certainty within yourself, self-trust, and that sits at the center of it. And then from there, once you have certainty and self-trust, you then have self-belief, you have clarity, you have direction. All of those other things come from knowing yourself. There is I would say strategy is part of it. But that comes far further down the track, because if you don't really know who you are, what your strengths are, what your skills are, what your value system is, it's going to be very hard for you to come up with a strategy that works for you. So I would say there is a pathway, which is your unique pathway, which is authentic to you, which is, you could call it your purpose, but that's probably not going to be clear until you know who you are. And so that state of being of authenticity, when you're grounded, when you're clear, when you're certain, that is what I would say is it means to be authentic.
And do you think authenticity is about being aligned compared to being liked.
Like, you couldn't have said it better.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, it is all about alignment. And, you know, a big part of it is not being liked.
Yeah.
And that's something a lot of people have to face, myself included. And it's funny because I think we all want to be liked. We want to be accepted. And to be authentic, you can't desire that. Because if you desire to be loved and accepted over being truthful, you're going to manipulate yourself to fit into places where you're not meant to fit in.
Yeah.
And the hard part is accepting the fact that you are going to get criticized. You're going to get demonized. You're going to get rocks thrown at you. And that's why a lot of people step out of authenticity, step out of alignment, because, yeah, that feeling really hits us at our core of a human is being rejected.
Yeah.
And that's our deepest fear, really, is to not feel good enough and not fit in.
Mm-hmm.
So to be authentic it's hard work.
It is.
It is hard work.
Yeah, 100%. So do you want to explain a little bit about what you do and how you do it?
Put simply, I'm a coach.
Yeah.
Call it a life coach. And so that allows me to step into all different areas of life. And I'm a real nerd when it comes to psychology. So I got expelled from school when I was 16, smoked drugs for a year, joined the army, was in the army for 7 years, became a physical training instructor. So fitness and health was the backbone of my identity. But even within that, I was always curious about psychology. Why do people do what they do? How can you live the greatest life possible? How can you operate at your potential? And that led me down a pathway and a rabbit hole into psychology. And so that's where I really geek out. So what I do now is operate as a life coach, helping people with all areas of life. Because if we want to create wealth, if we want to grow a business, if we want to have a meaningful relationship, all of it comes down to our psychology. Who we're being, the decisions we're making, the things we value. And so that's where my expertise lies, is really diving into a person, finding out who they are, what's true to them, and getting them to, I call it, awaken their magnificence. Because everybody has a spark, everybody has a path. And my gift is finding that and removing the blocks. And there are 4 blocks. We can talk about those 4 blocks, but removing those blocks so that someone can be themselves.
Yeah. And what do you see in your clients when it comes to challenging their identity?
It's really these 4 blocks.
The blocks, yeah.
So the need to fit in, that's one thing. And a lot of the time that can come from our family and friends, the people closest to us. We don't want to be rejected by those that are closest to us. So quite often we will live up to their expectations of who we should be. And so that's one of the big blocks, is wanting to be loved and accepted. Another block is fear. We want stability and certainty in our life. And for example, I was an athlete for a lot of my life. And then the step into entrepreneurship and into business, it felt inauthentic because all I knew was my identity, which was sport, athlete, competition. And I remember the day I was sitting at the dining room table with my housemate, and I was in this big conflict, and I kept thinking about my future, going, as I think about the future, who do I want to be? Do I just want to be an athlete because I know how to do it and I can coach other people? Or do I want to step into life coaching and running events and this psychology side of things? And I just thought to myself, I couldn't live with myself if I didn't follow my desire, which was to go down the psychology pathway. And that day I drew a line in the sand and I said, my social media content from that day, health and fitness was gone. Like, I removed all of that. And I just drew a line in the sand. I said, this is my new identity. I'm a coach now. Yeah. I'm not a physical training instructor. And so because that is unknown, that brings up in our nervous system immense fear. It's terrifying, stepping into a new identity. So that's the second block that really stops us, is fear. What are we going to lose by following our true path? Because there's loss, money. We could lose money. We could lose respect. There's all of these things. So that's the second block. The third block is distractions and looking for exciting things. If people work a 9 to 5, maybe they're not totally inspired by their job. Their true pathway involves something greater, but obviously fear stops them, and then they look for holidays or new car, other things that just take them off of their path. And the last thing is the need to be validated, or the need to feel like you're special or important, because there's an element of humility that comes with being authentic. And so if you're always looking to be the star of the show, or you're always looking to get validated by what you do, again, it's all about you, when really a true, authentic, purposeful pathway it's about contributing as well to something greater than yourself. So they're the 4 points: needing acceptance, needing validation, being distracted by shiny objects, and needing certainty, needing answers, which is driven by fear.
Interesting. That's pretty much sums it up.
Yeah.
Is this the stuff that you speak about in your book as well?
That is the core of the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. The book goes, I want to say, relatively deep. It goes into patterns of behavior and what drives our behaviors and what a true, meaningful, purposeful, inspired action is, rather than being motivated by our emotional needs, which are the path of unfulfillment, you could say.
Do you find a lot of your clients or people that you work with, they try to become somebody else to be perceived as successful?
100%. That's the core. I guess that's the core of all of our journeys, mine included, yours, everyone, where we're stepping into these different roles, trying to figure out who the hell we are. And that's where the comparisons come in. And I don't think we would be going here in this podcast, but really it's as corny as it sounds, it's about self-love. It's about fully accepting and appreciating yourself, all of the things you're ashamed of about yourself, all of the things that you think are great about yourself. When those things coexist within your whole being, the good shit and the bad shit, that's when you can be yourself. And most people are trying to get rid of the bad shit. There's parts of them that they don't like about themselves, they're ashamed of, and they're trying to hide them or get rid of them. And so they can never be themselves because they're always just trying to hide part of themselves.
Yeah. Trying to put up a mask as such. Yeah. Wow.
Yep.
So how do you stay grounded while growing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. There are definitely times where I don't, but that's part of growth. You need to keep destabilizing your reality in order to grow. So there's something called metacognition, which is essentially when you can see your own thoughts. And it's an ability to almost look at your life from a third-person perspective, so you're not attached to what's happening. That's the key, because when you can see it from a higher perspective, the road bumps along the way don't do as much damage to you. Whereas if you're caught up in it, you're going to lose your ground. You're going to lose your footing. You're going to have depression. You're going to have high highs, low lows, and it's going to be messy. And so when we're trying to grow, we have to step outside of our comfort zone. That's just a no-brainer. And during those times, I lose my grounding. If you're not losing your grounding, I'd say you're not growing. But then it's the awareness to notice the patterns. And again, I cover some of this stuff in the book. Have the tools to be able to reground yourself, or the strategies. My wife's a great example. If I'm ungrounded, I'll say, or she'll see it, and then we can have a conversation. We'll figure out what's going on, the psychology, the strategy. Those two things go hand in hand, and regain our footing for our business and where we're going, but also as an individual, for myself, for her, for anyone.
For the growth,
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about authenticity, but authenticity gets tested most when money comes into play. So I want to talk about what changes psychologically when you start making some serious money.
When I wasn't making money, I had a mentor who made mega millions. So arguably unethically, we'll just put that out there, but he was earning through his business about $20,000 a day. And he said to me, when you start making this kind of money, the first thing that happens is you feel really guilty. And so he was stricken with guilt. And so I looked at the mechanics of that, and really guilt comes from when you don't believe you're adding the value that you don't feel like you deserve the money. And that's why I said there's this integrity question that came up with him. When I first there's one day I made $100,000 in a day once. And that was from someone living in this tiny house, which was like a prison cell, with a housemate. And through my business, I made $100,000 in cash. And I remember coming home, and it was a mix between, I'm going to say I was surprised, but it was like shock as well. But the positive side of shock, not fear. It was like,
holy crap, I've just made
yes,
a lot of money.
But almost incomprehensible to the point of feeling surreal. It didn't feel like my life, because my life up until that point was not lots of money. And then all of a sudden, even though $100,000 isn't a lot to me, it was insane. And so I remember it feeling really surreal. And my housemate said to me, she's like, "You've made it. You've cracked it. Like, you're in the big time now, John." And I didn't know how to take it. So let's park that. I then just used that strategy again in the future. And about 4 weeks later, I made about $340,000 in a day. And I rang my mentor and I told him what happened. And he said, go to the beach and get grounded, walk along the beach in barefoot and get grounded. And I did. It was a few hour drive to my parents' house to the beach, and I went for a walk. And it was that exact same feeling of surreal. I couldn't comprehend what had happened. I couldn't comprehend how my life was going to unfold from that point forward. But this is where it gets interesting. Underneath that was, I'm going to say, a feeling of elation. So like a really elevated state, as you can imagine. Just made all this money. You're quite elevated. So although I went to the beach and tried to ground myself, my psychology had gone up to this level of, this is my standard now. You know, $340,000 in a weekend, that's my standard. And then when I didn't do that, I started to get down on myself because I just raised this bar up high. I started to get down on myself. And then it was as if the universe came in and taught me this really powerful, potent lesson. And for the next few events and months that I was running, $0, $0, $0. And it shattered my identity because I had said, well, this is me now. And the universe just said, humble yourself. And it wiped me out. It really shattered everything I thought I knew about identity, about being rich and famous. All of those things just got shattered from it. So the one thing I learned through gaining all this money, making a ton of money, but also losing a lot of it, is that the mission and purpose of our business transcends the fluctuations of the income, because there'll be weeks, months where you're killing it. And then COVID, for a lot of people, there's weeks, months where you're not killing it. And if your emotions are attached to the income, you're going to be going on a roller coaster. And it is just going to pull you off fear, elation, all of these other emotions. It's just going to pull you away from your purpose. And so I would say that during the high times, it's really important that we stay composed and we stay focused on the mission. And then during the low times, it's really important that we're optimistic and stay focused on the mission. So really at the end of the day, everything just comes back to keep serving, keep the mission alive, regardless of those sums of money coming or going.
Yeah. What surprised you most about wealth when you started, making a good amount?
I remember the day I became a millionaire. I'm doing that. I'm doing my bunny ears because, what even does that mean? And nothing changed. Nothing. It was, I lived in the same house. I felt the same. Everything was exactly the same. And so I think that surprised me. I was expecting maybe more validation. We talked about it earlier. I was expecting to be recognized. I was expecting people to perceive me differently. And maybe they did, maybe they didn't, but internally I felt the same. I had good days, I had bad days. And because I had this expectation that it was going to have some magical effect and it didn't, again, it was an expectation I had that wasn't met. So I just was disappointed. Yeah. Again, this is why I'm big on really not being attached to, everyone, of course, loves money. Great. But if that's our oxygen, we're in trouble.
Yeah. Do you feel like money solved a lot of your problems?
Yeah, you know what? It gave me the freedom to eat the foods I wanted to eat without checking the prices, go to the restaurants. So you get all of that, and then you get all of the other problems that come along with having money.
Yeah.
So, for example, I would have lunch with my family, and there would be an expectation that, well, he's got the money, so maybe he can pay for things. And people around you will say that they're not like that, but they are. They are. And it's pretty, it's like an unconscious thing that happens when someone has more money. All these people come out of the woodwork to have a sniff and see what it's all about. So yes, it solved a lot of problems, but it creates, and I want to say an equal amount, they're just different problems. You then have to start thinking about, it depends how you look at this, but tax, offshore structures, and that brings its own level of stress when you're setting up all of those things. So it solves a lot of problems and it opens up a whole lot more. And that's the journey. That's growth.
Yeah. Do you feel like when you started making a lot of money and like you said, it brings a lot of people out, did you find who your true people are through that?
I
Do
found
you cut a lot of people off?
the true people when the reverse happened, when I lost the money. That's when the true people came out, because they were there for me, not for what I could offer them, because I couldn't offer much. So yeah, that was the best part, really, when you figure out the people that care about you because you're you, and there's a connection there, as opposed to what you can offer them financially or more superficially.
Yeah. What happens internally when you do lose, that big sum of money?
I mean, this I was depressed, really depressed. My self-esteem was also attached to my wealth. And when I lost a lot of it, my self-esteem plummeted. My sex drive plummeted. I became depressed, became suicidal. So, I mean, that's probably at the extreme end. And you I'm sure, hear stories about people that end their lives over it. I get it. I understand why. Again, if we come back to that metacognition, when you can see it from a bigger picture, you're not going to do that, because you can see it's all part of a greater dynamic. And there are lots of great lessons within losing a lot of money. But yeah, if you're attached to it, it's going to bury you. And it buried me for years. There was about 3 years where I just spiraled. And that's what inspired me to write the book, because I wanted to know, why was I depressed? Why was my self-esteem down? What were the mechanics involved? And that's really what the book explained was, well, that's what I researched and put into the book is, this is how depression works. This is how happiness works. This is how anger works. Here's a roadmap of your mind and your emotions, which allows me and anyone who reads it to then have the metacognition, because instead of being stuck in the depression, we actually understand it. We know it for what it is, and then we can play our cards better and move forward.
What do you think the impact of decision making is when you're in that, low state of depression, suicide, all that sort of stuff?
So let's say a low state. In anytime we have a low state, which is really we're ashamed or we're depressed, they're the low states. Anytime we're depressed, shame will be with that. And anytime we have shame in us, whether we know it or not, we're going to minimize our potential. So we're going to make decisions based on safety, based on we'll be under ambitious with our goals. So we'll just start holding ourselves back. When we're in a high state, the opposite occurs. But it can go to the extreme as well. So we can be over ambitious. I had a client, she made $30,000 a month for 3 months in a row. Young girl in her 20s. And she did what I did. She went way up here and she said that's her new standard. Now, I had been through the whole thing and I saw it all unfolding. I couldn't tell her what was going to happen. She needed to learn the hard way. But she was so elevated, instead of feeling ashamed, she felt proud. So she was quite proud. She was then overambitious. And so she set goals to maintain those numbers. And I knew she was just having a good season. Like, it was summertime and the crops were growing.
Yeah.
And I knew the other season was going to come. So she did that. She hired another mentor as well as me for specific business coaching. That was a $30,000 mentorship. And she signed up to do it was like a 24-hour running race. And I knew she couldn't handle it all, but I couldn't tell her otherwise. So I was just like, okay, go for it. Because she was quite proud, she became complacent. She thought she had it locked in, and she became complacent. Her sales dropped. It was the exact same pattern I'd played out, and it all came crashing down. So she became frustrated, she got angry, she became furious, and then she became depressed. And so when we're in the down, negative, depressed state, we're under ambitious, we hold ourselves back. And if that becomes chronic, we give up on our dreams. On the flip side, when we're in that elevated, proud state, we can become over ambitious, and that can also have it can be counter effective, because then we can bite off more than we can chew, and that leads to burnout. So if someone's burnt out, they've gone too high. If someone's bored, they've gone too low.
Do you feel like when you get in that place of being complacent, it's almost like I've made it
Yeah, it's exactly that. I've got it all figured out. I know the
This is
answers.
it. Yeah. I've got that breakthrough.
Yeah.
Now it's just going to be continuous.
Yeah. And that's not life.
Mm.
No, life will hand you your next lesson real quick.
So now how do you separate that ego from the execution?
I think a little bit of ego is always going to be there, and it's even a little bit necessary. I think if you didn't have a little bit of ego, you probably, I don't think you would have ambition. So I feel that there is no secret to life. There's no magical way of having a perfect life. I don't even think I know that we're going to have a little bit of ego at times. We're going to have some ambition. We're going to go for it, and we're going to learn painful lessons along the way. The wise thing to do is know that that's true instead of looking for some perfect way where nothing goes wrong. So I would say accept that your ego is probably going to be involved a little bit. It's probably going to want a little bit of validation. It's probably going to want to be accepted by other people. That's great. And along the way, you're going to have your feelings hurt when you don't get validated. You're going to have your feelings hurt when you don't get accepted and liked by people. And that's when you have to go, all right, this is part of life. I got to keep going. So I think the wise thing to do is know that you can't get rid of your ego. It's always going to be there. It's just helps to have that perspective so that when those things happen, it takes the sting out a bit and you can keep going.
What's the difference between thinking in a abundance, wealthy mindset compared to thinking in a scarce mindset?
I'm smiling and laughing now. Can you define abundance mindset for me?
I think when we speak about an abundance mindset, it's more of a positive mindset, right? And thinking more optimistic and pessimistic. And that's that sense of business and life and growth and, making money.
Yeah, I hear you. Abundance is real. That's the first thing I'll say. The universe is always providing. So there is always enough to go around. And you are capable of building a life where you have, I'm going to call it relative abundance. You've got what you want and what you need. Scarcity, of course, is, you've probably noticed a bit during this podcast, I've talked about being high and being low. When we're high, we're more likely to be abundant. When we're low, we're more likely to be in scarcity. Both mindsets can be valid at times. At sometimes being a bit of a Scrooge McDuck can be beneficial. To be a bit less optimistic. To be, again, overly optimistic, we can set ourselves up for a future tragedy if we have too much optimism. There were some great studies done about pessimism and optimism. And this was a conclusion. So I saw one study and it said the more optimistic you are, the more successful you are, because even during the hard times, you've got a positive mindset, and so you keep going. And then I saw another study that said the more optimistic you are, the more defeated you become, because you're overly optimistic, your expectations don't get met, and then you get down on yourself. And so both studies essentially said the opposite to one another. And so from all of the research I've done is to be overly optimistic or overly pessimistic is going to be detrimental. You really want to be objective and down the middle. And so when it comes back to the abundance mindset, to be truly abundant, you are going to have to be okay. This tripped me up. This is why I'm struggling with this question, because it tripped me up.
It's fine.
Because I believe abundance is real. But anytime we take something, someone else loses something. And so for me, it started to hurt me because I was taking a lot. I was making a lot of money and I saw other people in pain. And I couldn't, and I have compassion and empathy. And as a coach, I wanted to help them. But they were paying me. I was getting them the result, but then they had, let's say, less money. And then what I noticed was that I couldn't help everyone. And then I started to feel guilty, like my mentor did, when I was taking this money, and I'm like, fuck, I can do more for them. I can do more for them. And so I researched abundance. There was a book by a guy called Charles Eisenstein, which is it's all about money, and it's all about sort of this question. He looks at it from the more pessimistic point of view. which is still truthful, which is there isn't enough to go around. So if you look, there's a certain amount of money in the world, and a lot of people have a lot of it, and a lot of people have not much at all. Like they're struggling. And that, as a human being, it hurt me. It hurt me to have that realization. And so I felt guilty about being more abundant and having a ton of money. Again, I write about this. Do I write about this in the book? I think I write about it a little bit in the book. And so I do believe in abundance, but not in the mindset most people do. I believe abundance is a fair exchange of give and take. And that might be different to a lot of people who just want to accumulate and have more. So I believe that the universe is abundant. It always does keep producing. And part of that process is there are going to be some people with less and some people with more. And so that is, in a way, that's the ugly truth. And so if you do become a millionaire, a multimillionaire, I believe a natural instinct is then to have some amount of guilt or shame because you have so much money when other people have so little.
Yeah.
And so true abundance is not just receiving it, but it's then kneeling down to help others and give back in some way, shape, or form. So to me, that's abundance.
Yeah.
Not just taking and becoming rich and wealthy. Yeah.
It's giving back and, helping out and
Yeah.
helping people get to a point where maybe you are, or, that sort of stuff as well.
Yeah.
Especially with life coaching.
Yeah. Yeah.
When it comes to the business growth and being confident within your business, do you feel like the confidence is built, or is that conditioned from a young age and the people that you hang around and...
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely both sides. There's always two sides to everything.
Mm-hmm.
And so early in life, our environment, our successes and failures really drive our confidence. And I'll compare myself to my brother, who I love dearly. Relative to him, I had all the successes. I played football. I was recognized. It was like John was the star child. My brother was bullied. Everything went wrong. And the amount of times I've cried just thinking about our childhood, going, that's not fair. Why did he have that childhood and why did I have my childhood? So that can definitely shape, because I grew up with a level of arrogance, a level of pride that, I was better than other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so that definitely shaped early successes as an athlete, in business, all of the things. I just believed in myself. But then things like my business failing, when COVID hit, that does the absolute opposite. It can chip away. And so what we need to do is, if we can just have small successes, that can start to rebuild our confidence again. And that's the process I've had to go through, is just having little wins to rebuild confidence after having a massive downfall or a massive failure. So it is both. At the end of the day, the most important thing is, I believe, whether you have overconfident or underconfident, chuck it all out and just find out what you want and just make small steps towards that. Because if you're underconfident, it'll build your confidence. If you're overconfident, like I've said a couple of times, you'll get humbled sooner or later, and you're going to have to have true confidence, true self-worth, which is when, I think maybe before we started this podcast episode, I said, I know it might have been the first question you asked, the parts we're ashamed of, the failures, all of that stuff, we have to accept that as part of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that's true confidence. When you can show your dark side, that's when you're truly confident. If you're hiding your bad side and showing the world your positive side, all of your successes, that's not true confidence. You're covering it up.
I think people connect on a deeper level when you show both the good and the bad as well.
Yep. I would say that's what it means to be authentic.
Yeah.
Which can be hard in marketing. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that, because when you're marketing, marketing is, don't talk about the bad sides, show people the good sides. Yeah. And I've had big conflicts around that as well.
I think previously, it was definitely more only show the good, keep showing the good, show how much success you have. Whereas I think now, especially with, the advent of AI and how prevalent it is in everybody's life, we're starting to shift more to being authentic and showing the real side of business, of life, of the journeys that we're going through. And a lot of people are connecting more with you telling your story here and resonating with that better, as opposed to, just your ChatGPT.
Yep. What are your thoughts
Caption.
on, because I agree. So that's how you get a connection with an audience, is through being authentic. But when you show the reality that, well, sometimes my life is good, sometimes it's average, sometimes it's terrible, or if you have a product and you say that, well, sometimes this product's good, sometimes it's not good, how do sales go? Because I know you're going to have connection with people, but then how do you get them across the line when you're showing them the bad side as well as the good side?
I think when it comes to selling a product or a service, you should try to eliminate those bad parts of it. There shouldn't be a case of, oh, it's sometimes good, it's sometimes bad. You should always strive for excellence, in my personal opinion. But I think when it comes to, showing business life, or, from being the director of the company, showing, today this happened, I had 2 podcast episodes. They both went absolutely amazing. We talked about this, we did this, I did this. Is very beneficial to show people what's possible. But it's also incredibly important to show, it's not always like this. Some days I'm not waking up till, I don't know, say if I wasn't waking up till 10 a.m. because I have stuff going in my life, and I'm only working 4 hours this day because I feel sick, or this has happened, or we just lost X amount of money on doing this advertising campaign. Here's what I would do differently. I think it's about telling the lessons and the failures through that, like what you learned from going through that. That shows how, it creates that emotional connection and authenticity, and shows, we are human. We make mistakes. It happens.
Yep.
Do you agree?
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
Yeah. Oh. So what frameworks help make a clearer decisions?
I have a process which I call the stress or the overwhelm process, because when we're stressed, obviously, we're confused, we don't know what to do, we're overwhelmed. It's awful. So a good thing to do is just write everything down. Get it out of your head first and foremost, because once it's out of your head can only hold so much content and deal with so many problems at the same time. So get it onto a piece of paper, each problem. And then I mentioned earlier in the podcast, for everything we do, there is a strategy and a psychology. There's the what's going on inside and what are we going to do outside. And so I list everything down, and then for each one, I will write how do I need to look at this? What's a mindset I can have with this problem that's going to allow me to feel less emotional or stressed about it? And then what's a strategy I can implement to either solve it or get closer to a solution? And even just doing that gives you clarity, and it just takes the weight off your shoulders. And sometimes the strategy is spend 30 minutes Google searching solutions. Maybe the strategy is you don't have an answer right now, just be patient. The psychology, the way you look at it could be as simple as, you don't have answers, so just let it be as it is until Friday. Maybe, on Friday, someone's going to email you and you're going to get more information. So by going through that, we bring ourselves, I want to say, into a state of balance. And when we're balanced, decision-making is straightforward. It's when we're emotionally unbalanced that it becomes difficult. Again, we either overdo it, underdo it, or we're in conflict and confusion. So by getting it all out, bringing harmony to our mind, coherence to our system, decision-making then becomes simple. One of my mentors, talked about decisions, and he said when you're truly balanced, you don't actually decide. You just know. You know what to do. And so he said decision-making is, if you're having to make decisions, it's a sign that you're not actually balanced and in alignment with what's true for you. So instead of labeling it as a decision, get yourself in harmony and then let the answer come through instead of trying to figure it all out in your head.
When you're making those decisions, how do you make those decisions when you have so many emotions? So, we're happy, we're sad, we're angry. How do you make those decisions when you're in each aspect of those emotions?
Yeah. When you're in an emotion, so if you're happy, for example, you might find it easy to make decisions because usually positive emotions bring more conviction. I'm not going to say clarity, but more conviction. When you're in negative emotions, you're less convicted, you're unsure, you're doubtful. And so it depends what emotional state you're in as to what the way you decide. Another way to do it is to list the potential options. We were even doing this morning. List the potential options and then put them against each other put them to battle with each other. So if you were going to do option 1 or option 2 and you could only pick one option, what would it be? And then you might say, well, option 1. And then you go, okay, option 1 versus option 3. What do you feels better? Option 3, let's say. And then you go, okay, option 3 or option 4. So you go to battle with them. And that's called ranking a values hierarchy. And so you're valuing each option in a hierarchy. And by doing that, you then, although you might like the other options, when the push comes to shove, you have one that is the leader of all of the options that you've had. So that's another tool or a strategy that you can use. And I would call that is decision making. So when you don't have the clarity, when you're not in the coherent state, and you just know, if you are struggling to get yourself into that state of clarity, then list the options, put them into a hierarchy, and that is you making a decision. And that word decide, the word suicide means kill yourself. The word homicide means kill another. The word insecticide means kill an insect. The word decide means kill off the options. So when we're making a decision, it is about going, okay, these are my 4 options. We've got to kill them off until we're just left with what remains.
I really like that analogy. I've never thought of it like that before.
Yeah. I love looking at the etymology of words,
Yeah,
because it tells you so much about the word.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So I want to go back to talking about money and identity. So how do you prevent money from becoming your identity?
In the Western world, it's pretty hard to do. I can only speak from my experience, and how I did it was, one, admitting that it was attached to my identity, however much, because when we attach something to our identity, it validates us. That's what it does. It validates who we are. So as an athlete, winning a competition was my form of validation. When I got injured and I stopped competing, I had nothing left to validate me. So I went to the next thing in my life, which was money. If I have money, that will compensate from not winning sporting competitions. So that's the first thing. We have to go, what validates me in my life? And there'll be something, and your identity will be attached to it, because that's what our identities do. And so that's the first thing. Go, what validates me in life? If you're on social media, it could be how many followers you have. There's something that will validate you. And so that's what your identity is going to be primarily attached to. And then from there, it is recognizing, and I do a lot of meditation, it is about recognizing when that emotional attachment is active. So you're going to feel some kind of pain or pleasure when you make money or when you lose money. And if you feel excited to make money, happy to make money, and you feel fearful of losing money or depressed when you lose money, you know that you've got an attachment to it. And so again, we've all got an ego, we've all got these little attachments. It's just being aware and going, I reacted based on money coming in my bank or money going out of my bank, or losing money or gaining money. I reacted. And when we're in a reactionary psychology or a reactionary mindset, that's when we know we've got an attachment to money and our identity.
What matters more than the money you create when you're on this journey?
The ultimate, I believe, is who you become. And I mentioned at the start of this podcast, we sculpt ourselves. And as we go through life, that character we're building is becoming more and more unique, more and more authentic, more and more chiseled. And I don't mean ripped, I mean just defined. You know who you are, and you're so unique and individualized. And so really who you become is the most important thing of, I want to say, life, this whole journey. Because as you grow and evolve, you're just going to keep becoming more and more yourself. And with that comes more and more fulfillment, more and more authenticity, more and more inspiration. And you can offer more to the world because you're so individuated. There's no one else like you, that when you offer your gifts, it's literally the purpose of your life, whether that is as a parent to your children. There is some unique perspective that you hold, or unique skills and strengths and purpose that you hold within you. So that's what brings fulfillment, and fulfillment is the ultimate goal, right? And can we ever get right there where we're always fulfilled? No. But along the way, we're going to learn our lessons, whether it's through money, through relationships. The pains we experience are just going to shape our character. And that's the one thing that we can never get rid of, is who we become.
There's one thing I want to ask you, which we didn't pop in here. So your beautiful wife was actually the one that reached out to me to have you on the podcast. So I want to get your perspective on having a supportive spouse when it comes to building a business and business growth and success.
I honestly believe that who you have in your corner is critical for all areas of life, but business success. I remember I went to a Tony Robbins event years and years ago, and he said for everyone who's looking to start a business, he's like, find a partner. Not necessarily a wife, but find a partner, because they will hold you accountable. When you struggle, they'll help you. When you struggle, you'll help. When they struggle, you'll help them. And I always remember that, but I was a very individualized guy. And I did well, but I also failed as well. And then when Heather and I got together, I knew that if we had a joint purpose, the relationship would flourish first and foremost, because we're both working towards a common goal, and that's what creates a good bond. And so we have mapped out different ideas, we've mapped out different pathways forward, and whenever we do that, we just ensure that will both of us be fulfilled in the pursuit of that goal. And if the answer is no, then we either need to go our separate ways or change our goal, because as long as we're united for something greater, we're going to have a flourishing relationship. And so when it comes to her support, for me personally, it's priceless. Whether that's emotionally, well, mainly just emotionally, or having just someone to bounce ideas off of, I don't think you can put a price on it. And I've experienced the opposite, where you don't have a supportive partner, and it's destructive. It takes you away from, especially as a man, when you've got direction and purpose, having someone that's pulling you away from that is one of the most painful things you can imagine. So the opposite is, I can't put it into words how great it is. And she's, look at her.
She's the best.
Yeah, she is. She really is.
I completely agree with everything you've said. I think having a partner can take you in two separate ways. You either stay where you are and you go backwards, or you keep going to your purpose and they help you and guide you, and they're in your corner, like you said. Awesome. So this is a question I ask all the guests on the podcast. So I want you to give your advice for someone building right now who wants wealth but doesn't fully understand what comes with it. What would you tell them?
I would just say, just go for it, and don't expect it to make you happy. Make as much as you want. Go whatever your vision and dream is. No one has the right to tell you otherwise. Do what you feel is right. And I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, it's good or bad. If it's inside you and you have a craving or a desire or an obsession for it, go for it. You're going to figure out on the other side of that, well, you're going to experience pain, you're going to experience loss, gain, all of it, but you're just going to be better off on the other side of it. And whatever lessons you learn, you then carry forward to your next challenge, your next endeavor. But at the end of the day, being apathetic with life or shying away from making bank, whatever you want to do, being apathetic towards it, being judgmental towards it, you're just going to shrivel up emotionally, spiritually. You're going to not be inspired. So just follow your inspiration, follow your calling, and do it to the best of your ability. You're going to lose people, maybe money, friends along the way. That's all part of it. So just go for it.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast today and being one of our guests here. You've shared a lot of wisdom, and I hope that the listeners can take away a few of your points that you've said. Where can people find you if they want to follow along for your journey?
My social media handle on Facebook, Instagram, pretty much everywhere, is at John Templeton Official, and my website is johntempleton.io.
Yeah. I'll link everything down below for you guys in the description as well. If you're not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you subscribe so we can keep having these amazing conversations with everybody every week.